Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're diving into a chilling and tragic story that shows just how dangerous obsession can be. In psychology, there's a term called Adele syndrome, which might not be familiar to many, but it describes something quite alarming, an intense, uncontrollable obsession with another person. The name comes from Adele Hugo, the youngest daughter of the famous French writer Victor Hugo. She was known for her beauty and talent as a pianist, but what happened to her life is truly tragic. Adele fell deeply in love with a man who didn't return her feelings, and this unrequited love had a devastating impact on her mental health. Her obsession took over her life, and she started following him everywhere, pretending to be his wife and even interfering with his career. She poisoned both her life and his, and eventually she spent 43 years in a psychiatric hospital. Out of her 84 years, half were spent in confinement due to her mental state. This condition, where someone becomes overly attached or obsessed with another person, is more common than you might think. It can range from harmless infatuation to a dangerous obsession that controls every thought and action. While many people can recover with the help of a psychologist, some cases go beyond that, requiring hospitalization or even intense therapy. But in extreme cases, this kind of obsession can push someone to do unpredictable and sometimes horrific things. One tragic example is the case of Zalia Shamigulova, a young woman in Russia who met her Tinder date, hoping for romance. But it ended in a nightmare. She was brutally murdered, found with multiple stab wounds to her chest. But what makes this even more disturbing is the details discovered during the autopsy. Her tongue had been cut out, and a piece of her throat had been removed, likely so she couldn't scream for help. And it was all because of the obsession of a man who barely even knew her. Why did this happen? And how did she even meet this man? Let's dive deep into this very recent case that happened just this August. In this video, we'll be referring to Zalia Shamigulova as Zali for short. She's the woman at the heart of this tragic case. Now, Zali was known for her outgoing and lively personality, and she was only 29 years old. Additionally, she was a university teacher in Russia and loved to share her adventures with the world. Even though the case is still unfolding and we don't have all the details yet, what we do know really brings Zali's vibrant life to life. She was incredibly active on social media, especially on Facebook. Through her posts and photos, you can almost see her joyful and adventurous spirit shining through. In fact, on August 12, 2024, she shared a breathtaking photo of herself dressed in an Indian outfit, with the caption, "I became a guest at an Indian wedding in Mauritius, turned into an Indian girl. Rate the shot from 1 to 10. Little did anyone know this would be her final update. To give you some context, Zali was vacationing on the picturesque African island of Mauritius. This tropical paradise is located about 700 miles east of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean and is known for its stunning beaches and serene environment. According to some witnesses, she was last seen on August 17th wearing a white and blue dress. She was also seen in CCTV footage getting into a blue Toyota, driven by a local man who was giving her a ride. When Zali didn't come back to her rental apartment, her friend, who was traveling with her, immediately reported her missing. At the same time, something unusual started happening. Zali's family began receiving strange messages from her phone. These messages bizarrely claimed that Zali had chosen to disappear on purpose and didn't want any more contact with them. This was alarming for her loved ones. Zali was always very open about her life, regularly updating her family and friends about her travels on social media. She loved sharing every exciting moment with the world, so it seemed completely out of character for her to suddenly cut off all communication. Her sudden silence and the odd messages didn't add up. It was completely unlike the Zali they knew, who was always enthusiastic and in touch. This unexpected change in behavior set off alarm bells, making her friends and family worry that something terrible might have happened. As a result, they decided to call the police right away to investigate her disappearance. As the investigation into Zali's disappearance continued, the focus soon turned to her Tinder date, a 29-year-old IT engineer named Puriya Virsing Sundur. Sundur was a native of the island where Zali was vacationing and had matched with her on Tinder. There's some confusion about whether they had met before she arrived on the island or if they only connected after she got there. But what's clear is that Zali and Sundur did meet and share some time together, suggesting their relationship was more than just a casual encounter. Initially, authorities considered Sundur as just another potential witness in the case, with no suspicion that he was involved in anything sinister. However, the investigation took a dramatic and unexpected turn when Sundur shockingly confessed to the crime. As detectives dug deeper, they made a crucial discovery. Blood was found inside Sundur's car. This piece of evidence became a key breakthrough, raising serious doubts about Sundur. With the evidence mounted against him, he eventually led the police to a significant location. He guided law enforcement to an area called La Marie, which is about a 25-minute drive from where Zali and her friend had been staying. It was there, in a shallow grave, that they found Zali's body. The scene was truly horrifying. Zali's body was discovered without clothes, and she had been brutally stabbed multiple times. The stab wounds were mainly around her chest and breasts, making it clear that this attack was no accident. It was a deliberate act of violence. However, the horror didn't stop there. Sundur's confession exposed even more shocking and gruesome details about what had happened. He admitted to not only killing Zali, but also mutilating her body. In a particularly gruesome act, he also cut out her tongue and a piece of her throat, intending to silence her so she couldn't scream for help. What makes this even more terrifying is the possibility that Zali might have still been alive when he did this. The thought of such cruelty is chilling. This terrible incident happened on August 22nd, which was only 5 days after Zali went missing. Sundur later explained that his motive for the murder was jealousy. Sundur claimed that Zali had been unfaithful, cheating on him with someone else. According to him, he had been planning to marry her, dreaming of a future where they would spend their lives together. In his mind, Zali was the person he wanted to build a forever with, a future filled with happiness, love, and companionship. However, when Sundur allegedly discovered her infidelity, it broke him completely. Devastated and unable to cope with the betrayal, he sought a twisted form of revenge. In his confession, Sundur admitted to hatching a dark and cruel plan. He pretended to take Zali on what she thought would be a peaceful and enjoyable sightseeing trip. Little did she know, Sundur had something far more sinister in mind. Instead of the pleasant day she expected, Zali was met with a nightmare. During what should have been a fun outing, Sundur attacked her with a knife, ending her life in a brutal and tragic way. It's important to note that Sundur's actions had nothing to do with love. Despite his claims of being heartbroken, his behavior went far beyond anything that could be justified by pain or heartbreak. His actions were not those of a man who had been wounded by love. They were the actions of someone deeply disturbed and dangerous. After this, local media revealed that detectives were still on the hunt for Zali's missing body parts and clothing. The discovery of her remains had shaken the island, but the investigation was far from over. Despite not having all the missing pieces, her loved ones held a funeral ceremony to honor her memory, allowing them to find some sense of closure before her remains could be returned to her home in Russia. The authorities suspect that Sundur had planned to dismember Zali's body completely. This horrifying intention adds an even more chilling layer to the crime. However, it seems something went wrong with his plan, leading him to hastily bury her body in a shallow, makeshift grave on the island. Remember when Zali's family received those strange messages? It's possible that the suspect was behind them. Although it's unclear if he sent them in English or used translation apps to communicate in Russian, it's evident that his efforts to cover up the crime were not enough. The scene he left behind was brutally clear about the premeditated nature of his actions. As authorities continue to search for the missing parts of Zali's body, they also hope to uncover more details that could explain the full extent of Sundur's evil intentions. The fact that he may have intended to further mutilate her is terrifying and only serves to highlight the depths of his disturbed mind. As of now, the case is still ongoing, and Sundur is waiting for his trial. The authorities have him in custody, and many hope that justice will be served. People want to see him held accountable for the horrible crime he committed. The hope is that he never walks free and spends the rest of his life in prison, paying for the brutal murder of Zali. And to help make sense of the many questions surrounding this case, retired police commander and host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King, shared his thoughts. He explained that while we may never fully understand what went through Sundur's mind, there are warning signs that can help us avoid tragic situations like this in the future.
Personally, from a criminologist perspective, it's absolutely more dangerous. And again, this is not an attack on the victim. And I hope everyone who's listening understands this is not about anything to do with shaming the victim. It's about risk reduction.
King pointed out that meeting someone online can always be risky because you're dealing with an unknown person. When people connect online, they often feel safe because the interaction is virtual. However, meeting that person in real life can be a completely different story. In Zali's case, it's likely she trusted Sundur because she thought he was just another guy she met while on vacation. As King emphasized, it's crucial to reduce risk when meeting new people, especially in unfamiliar places. Going on a trip far away from home can be exciting, but it also adds multiple layers of dangers because you're not as familiar with your surroundings, the culture, or the people. But King's advice doesn't stop there. He goes on to emphasize the importance of taking precautionary measures when traveling, especially in unfamiliar places. According to him, it's crucial to be hyper-aware of your surroundings and the people you meet along the way. Simple things like sharing your location with someone you trust, having a buddy system, or making a plan if you get separated can be life-saving. In Zali's case, King highlights how something as basic as a phone app tracking her location could have made a difference. King also urges travelers to do their homework before embarking on a trip.
One of the things that I often say, and when we travel extensively with another couple throughout the world, and we make sure that we all have each other's phones on our phones so that we can go to the location they are. And if we decide to split up for the day, we say, I'm going here and I'll be back at this time. And you have this sense of security and being able to look on your app and say, oh yeah, they're where they said they were. And if things go wrong, you have a breadcrumb trail to follow, which may have led to her discovery more quickly.
If you ever find yourself in a dangerous situation, the last thing you want is to be at a loss, unable to communicate, or not knowing who to turn to for help. Reaching out to your country's embassy or State Department should be your first move, as they can offer critical support, including translation services and investigative assistance. These connections can prove invaluable when you're in a foreign land, far from home. But King didn't stop there. He also delves into the suspect's motives and provides chilling insights. Now, his expertise doesn't just come from studying cases like Zali's. Having dealt with predatory behavior for decades, he knows the minds of people like Sundur better than most. The suspect's claim that he cut out Zalia's tongue to keep her from screaming is quickly dismissed by King as a cover-up for a darker, more sinister intent. The tongue doesn't produce the scream, he points out. It's the lungs, the vocal cords. She could still have made noises of pain and suffering. So why would Sundur remove her tongue? King dives deep into the possible reasons. Historically, cutting out someone's tongue has often been used as a punishment for betrayal. In Sundur's mind, Zali's alleged affair could have felt like a personal betrayal, leading him to act out in a fit of rage. King suggests that this wasn't just about silencing her, but about punishing her in the most brutal, symbolic way possible. But beyond the historical and cultural implications, there's another disturbing layer to the crime: the possibility that Sundur acted out a long-held fantasy. Many predators, King explains, spend years fantasizing about violent acts before they eventually carry them out. In Sundur's case, removing Zali's tongue could have been part of a fantasy he had built up in his mind over time. This predatory behavior, King notes, is terrifying because it often spirals out of control, leading to the horrific crimes we see in cases like this. Another thing that King would love us to take note of is the way Zali's body was found, which provides crucial clues about the suspect's behavior. The fact that she was stripped of her clothes and buried in a shallow grave suggests a disturbing pattern. King believes this isn't just a straightforward murder, but the act of a disorganized predator acting on a sexually driven fantasy. King points out that if Zali had been left exposed and posed, it would have signaled a deliberate message from the predator. However, since she was buried, it complicates the situation. The choice of a burial site near a residential area rather than a secluded spot shows a lack of careful planning. Additionally, King highlights the missing clothing. Investigators search for it not just for physical evidence, but to understand the sequence of events. Was the clothing removed as part of a ritual or symbolic act? King notes that these details can offer insights into the predator's mindset. How the clothing is treated can reveal a lot about what the perpetrator was thinking. Now, King shifts to the motive behind the murder. The suspect's rage seems to stem from Zali stepping out of their relationship, but King questions how someone could get so enraged over a short-term romance. They hadn't been together long, just a vacation romance, he points out. It's hard to believe that someone would react with such violence over a brief affair. King considers the possibility that the suspect may have had other motives beyond just a lover's quarrel. Perhaps he was looking for someone to target, and Zali was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. This theory raises the question of whether investigators should look into other unsolved crimes on the island to see if the suspect could be linked to them. Additionally, he must have known that Zali was set to go to Madagascar on September 1st, making it clear that their Tinder relationship was only temporary. Now, for years, we've seen troubling cases like this unfold, highlighting the dangers of meeting people online. One tragic case occurred in 2016 involving Ingrid Line, a nurse and mother of 3 from Seattle, Washington. Ingrid was killed and dismembered by John Robert Charlton, a man she had met through an online dating site. The following year, Sydney Loof, a 24-year-old from Nebraska, was lured into a date with Bailey Boswell and her boyfriend, Aubrey Trail. What started as a seemingly innocent meetup turned horrifying. They brutally strangled Sydney and dismembered her, leaving a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind a digital profile. Then, just a year later, another Tinder date case shocked the world. Grace Mullane, a British backpacker, was exploring New Zealand when she matched with Jesse Shane Kempson on Tinder. Tragically, just before her 22nd birthday, Grace was murdered. What makes this case even more shocking is what happened the very next day. While Grace's body was hidden away in a suitcase, Kempson, the man responsible, went back to Tinder. In the same year, another chilling case unfolded. Daniel Drayton, who was charged with the murder of Samantha Stewart in 2018, shocked everyone with his brutal actions. Samantha, a nurse from Queens, met Drayton through a dating app. After their meeting, Drayton allegedly committed a horrifying crime. He left Samantha naked and wrapped in a blanket with her teeth knocked out in her own bedroom. And Drayton didn't just face charges for this horrific murder. He was also hit with several additional charges: grand larceny, identity theft, possession of stolen property, and sexual misconduct. The case took an even darker turn when it was revealed that Drayton was a serial killer who used dating apps like Tinder to find his victims. So the next time you meet a Tinder date, remember these cases. And maybe let your friend know where you're going to be in case they do give you the creeps and you need to get out of there. Zali and the other victims were looking for companionship or maybe a long-term relationship, just like many people do. They didn't know who they were meeting, and were seeking connection, but unfortunately, they encountered people who were cruel and dangerous. In light of these tragic stories, if you ever have to choose between meeting someone you don't know well or staying safe, it's better to stay safe. Sometimes, it's better to avoid potential risks rather than facing the unknown. As we wait for more updates on this case, make sure to stay tuned for the latest news. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our other true crime videos. We'll see you there.